Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate your time. Any additions to the agenda in front of you today before we get started? Okay. Approval of the previous meeting minutes. Somebody approved the previous. Okay, thank you. Did I get a second? Okay, motion passes. Any board member comments? Tom, you got anything? Rick's not here, so John, you want
ready?
Ready.
Okay, so I'm reading from somebody else's notes, so excuse me if I take a few pauses here. But as of right now, boat registrations are past due, as probably everybody in this room knows. However, to this point, and I mean as of today's date, we've only had 14 boat registration violations since the beginning of April, which is incredibly good. Almost impossibly good, I would say. Now we expect them to be relatively low in April, and it picks up in May and June as boat use gets better. But to this point, it's been incredibly good how everybody's been with their boat registration violations, and all those registrations were mostly trailer stickers, so everybody's had their boat registered this year. So we are really thankful for that. In the month of April, the Lake Rangers had 3,097 contacts. That is a lot compared to last year. April 2022, we had 1,735 contacts. So a huge difference there. You can see there's a lot of outdoor use, you know, this April because it's been warmer than it normally would have been. So far in April, or last month, we removed 206 compared to 62 the previous year. 341 boat contacts for the month of April, and 80, we'll call it 90 hours on the boat for the month of April. Along with the warm weather that we're having, we're starting to see our rowdy groups show up. They're at Avalon Dock and Dam. We've removed them several times, and a lot of that is reflected in that 206 that has been removed. So as of today, we're going to start, well, it's not as of today, but we are now locking that Avalon Dam gate, and that will be locked from noon until 7:30 a.m. each day to kind of help curtail some of that behavior. Grounds.
Is that maybe midnight to 7 a.m.?
No, from noon until 7 a.m. Because mostly they show up in the afternoons.
Okay.
And what a lot of that is people drive down on the dam and they'll start squealing tires, doing burnouts on the dam, and you know that party crowd that I know we've referenced in this meeting many times before. It's different people, but you know, same sort of situation year in year out.
Are these Bella Vista people, or are these usually?
Generally, it will be a mixed group, but usually no. But there can be some Bella Vista members sprinkled in there, but a lot of them end up getting removed because they have no guest card and no ties to membership whatsoever. And it will be large groups usually that have just come from wherever and they decided to come party on the dam.
So when you say the gates close from noon to 6 a.m., is that to just vehicular traffic? You can still walk down, take a bicycle or whatever?
It's still completely accessible. A lot of it is just to curtail the fast vehicle traffic. People want to speed up and down the dam and things.
I guess that was kind of my question. I didn't go far enough, but people can get on there during the afternoon if they want to go fish or walk or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. It's still completely accessible by foot or really bike traffic. You could go around. Let's see, our kayak rack over at Lake Ann, which I think we talked about, is now complete, and all those spaces are rented. That's the new kayak rack. We've always had one there. We are in the process of replacing a lot of bad dock boards as the humidity gets up. You guys probably noticed that you'll start to see these rotten dock boards start to pop up here and there. If you see some, as good as our eyes are and as many people as we have, we still miss some on occasion. Just please report it to us. You're never over reporting if you report a problem. So just let us know if you see anything, but we are replacing those boards as fast as we can. Friday, this coming Friday, we will, several of our lake rangers and some of our gun range staff are going to be attending a conflict de-escalation class to learn those skills. It's something we've requested quite a while back, and thanks to our HR department, we were finally able to get that done. So I know a lot of our staff are excited about that. I'll be going along with, like I said, some of our gun range staff and several of our lake rangers, but we did not have room for the whole department. So we'll bring those tools back and try to teach as best we can the rest of our department members. Our staff is also in the process of retrieving and repairing a lot of the buoys. Now is the time of season where we start to see, people getting out their boats and start reporting buoy issues. So we're repairing those as quickly as we possibly can. The Lake Brittany trout stocking is done for the spring. We'll pick that back up in November, just like we do every single year. This is pretty much the formula we always follow. The first aquaculture pond is complete. You guys can clap if you'd like. We've been waiting on that day, but it is complete. There's water has filled it, and as of right now, we've got our 1,500 channel catfish that we've been holding. They are sitting in that pond and feeding whenever we feed them. And when we moved those fish, we only lost one out of the whole group, so we did really well there. Lake Windsor's been stocked with 75,000 saugeye fry. I think Rick probably reported last time that these were going to be the very small little guys. We don't expect an incredible amount of survival out of that. And the reason that we stocked at that very small size was because we did not have aquaculture ponds ready for them to go whenever those fish needed to be turned loose. So we will get some survival, just not the amount that we normally would have got if we were, releasing our 1 to 2 inch fish. We expect that our lake fertilization program will begin next week. That kind of hinges on our volunteer secchi measurements that'll come in on Monday, but we've noted that most of the lakes are trending towards clear, so which we kind of expect this time of year. We'll take a look at everything on Monday and then determine what needs fertilizing and get that off the ground. Spring fish sampling or electrofishing is complete. I'm not sure if we noted in the last meeting, but we started that out a little bit earlier this year than we normally do, mostly because everything warmed up way faster than we kind of anticipated. The age and growth samples that we collected from those fish, it will take us quite a while to work through those. So Chris and Kayla will be working on those till probably into the summer sometime. Kids Fishing Derby is scheduled for May 20th. That's a Saturday at 8 a.m. It will last till noon. It's going to be at the Metfield Clubhouse Pond like we have the last few years. As always, children 3 to 15 are welcome. And let's see. It looks like the fly tires have agreed to help us, and obviously we appreciate when the fly tires help us because there's a lot going on during that. And then lastly, the open house event that we had at the aquaculture ponds was a success. I know several of you guys were there. We estimate we had around 150 in attendance, and that's on the high end, but because everything was happening so fast, it's kind of hard to get accurate numbers. And I know I can speak for myself, and I probably can speak for Chris and Kayla whenever we say we appreciate the opportunity to have an event like that. Those guys don't get a whole lot of opportunity to talk about what they do to the general public, to a community outreach event. So we appreciate everybody that came out and gave us an opportunity to talk to them. I know Chris probably talked for nearly 2 solid hours at one point, and I probably did close to the same towards the end. So it was really, really nice to see all the interest that was expressed and all the support. So thanks to everybody that came out. That's all I've got.
I think it's a really good event, by the way, and thank you guys for being there.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Did a nice job.
2 questions on the aquaculture ponds. The fish that are in the first one, how long will they be in there before they're ready to go in a lake?
We are not absolutely sure as of yet. Of course, that's a Rick decision. We could keep those fish, on up into the 12-inch range. If we've got no other project that we need to complete in that pond, like we don't need the room, in other words, then we may keep them to a larger size just to help, ensure that we've got that much better survival on the fish.
And the other 2 ponds, what's the time frame on those?
That I really don't know. We are working on them as quickly as possible, but I do not know the actual timeline.
I've had miscellaneous questions from people who, and I'm not educated on this, but they express concern that those ponds are not fenced, so people and critters can go in and have free will with it.
I like the answer Chris gave at the event. He said there's golf course ponds and lakes all around Bella Vista that are not fenced in, so what's the difference?
And we checked with our insurance company, and they didn't feel that we needed to fence them either, and because of that exact answer.
Okay, that's basically what I've been saying, but just didn't know, what the background was on that.
Right.
One more question. Lake Rangers, are you fully staffed, or you still have open spots?
As of today, before I came to the meeting, we were fully staffed. I think we are about to open a position sometime very soon. The new Lake Rangers that have come on, except for a couple that had previous engagements that we knew about, everybody that we could hire is already on, and I believe they are fully up and running autonomously by themselves. But I believe we will probably be opening another position in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
So how many rangers now do we have?
I believe, oh gosh, I have lost count. I believe we have 7 on right now, and we will have an additional that will be coming on as soon as the school year has ended. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we have room for 1 more.
Curious, how many boats do we have, Ranger boats? 1 per each? How does that work?
The number has fluctuated, so now I'm gonna have to think about this. Well, we've got 1 on each of the Wake Lakes, and they stay, Loch Lomond, Windsor, and Ann have permanent boats on those. Avalon will have a boat on it. It does not currently, but it will have a boat on it when the season comes in, if we can get that boat repaired in time. And then the other lakes that we have are serviced by a boat that we pull around rather than having one on the shoreline waiting.
What's the problem with that 1 boat, may I ask?
Numerous and often, I will say. It's a very old boat.
Okay.
That it's in bad need of replacement.
Okay. That's what I wanted.
Because it's at Avalon and it is a no wake lake, and it is so close to where the tow around boat is stored. When we have issues with that boat, we can tow from. It's not the ideal situation, but we can tow from the MAC building over to it. So that has been the lowest priority.
Is it how's the engine on it?
Not that's the issue.
Oh, that's the issue.
That's the issue.
Okay.
That boat, if I'm not mistaken, is I believe it's a 2000, and it has been there for quite a while. And I might be mistaken on those numbers, but it is in need of replacement. But don't be surprised if it shows up on the budget.
Some Lake Avalon people have wanted to make it into a planter.
And the other issue with it is some of those issues have been alleviated, but in the years past, I'm sure you guys have been through there if you've been here for very long, and you've seen that entire area flooded. I know of at least twice since 2009 that boat has been completely submerged and underwater and on the bottom of the lake, just because that area was so prone to flooding.
One last question. I continue to get complaints from Loch Lomond people about traffic on weekends and the lack of lake rangers, and they're concerned about the major holidays and feel like there's too much traffic during those times. And is there any hope that we can give them about either more lake ranger surveillance or some limit to the number of boats that actually get put on the lake during these high traffic times?
I can't answer the limitation question because that would be a committee issue for you guys. But for the lake rangers, I can say for the most part we're back up to fully staffed now, and I know there's a little lag, you know, in the year. April has been a warm month, and I know a lot of people have been out, and we've had our limited staff, but now we're coming on to full staff, and I hope most people would agree by the end of last year when we had our full staff, we had eliminated and alleviated part of those issues. Where we knew there were going to be problems, we had people out there as often as we possibly could, and that's what we'll do this year to alleviate those concerns. When those concerns come up and we get those phone calls, we try to make sure that we have rangers in the places where those concerns are popping up and keep them out there for as long as it takes, as much as we possibly can.
Any other questions for John before we move on? Go ahead, Paul, you got something?
Well, it has to do, no, I'll wait until you get to new business.
Okay. All right, thanks, John. Appreciate the report. So we had an interview committee, and we interviewed about 10 candidates for committee positions for the Lakes Committee. So all 5 candidates that were submitted, we had 2 incumbents who were resubmitted. They were approved. Carol Phillips and Ross Garner are up for another term. And then we selected 3 new members to the committee. Scott Hawes, who's in attendance today. Scott doesn't live on a particular lake, but uses several of our lakes. Rob Montgomery, who lives on Lake Windsor. And Kevin Adelson, who lives not on, but very close to Lake Ann. So we feel like we have a pretty good representation of both. I think all the candidates did a really good job. I think all 3 of these people are going to be great committee members, and I think we have good representation geographically throughout our lakes. I'm going to let the swim group come up and do their pitch real quick. They were kind of a last minute add-on to the agenda, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
I greatly appreciate.
Yes, speak in the mic, please.
Oh, you bet. I never need a microphone. This is exciting. My name is Bonnie Adams, and I'm with a group called Swim Oz, and we are a United States Masters swim team, which basically means an adult swim team. And we happen to specialize in open water swimming. And I have a few of my team over there, as well as they're all Bella Vista property owners as well. And we service about 70 members in the Northwest Arkansas area, and typically go out to Beaver Lake on a weekly basis, but looking to kind of change things around a little bit and hopefully have an addition to our offerings. And so what I've been working with Joan and Jessica, I believe, through Aquatics, and what I've proposed to them is that we would be really excited about providing this to your members, your residents, your property owners at free of charge, in the hopes that we could bring a few guests. The way this kind of looks is I set up swim buoys, so think about a 7-foot bright orange triangle buoy that I go place out to set a swim course. Typically it's in a triangle shape, just to kind of give as much berth to our swimmers as possible. A lot of them are pool swimmers, and when they come out to open water, they don't typically swim in a straight line anymore. And so we want to try to keep to the right side as much as we can to avoid any head-on collisions. And then on that safety note, I always have a handful of kayakers and paddleboarders that come out with me to keep an eye on the swimmers, as well as any boat traffic that's around us to kind of give my swimmers a parameter, kind of parameter check, if you will. And then we, because we're a USMS team, we have insurance provided through them, and there's certain rules and things that we have to kind of abide by, and that's a swimmer to safety ratio, as well as an insurance piece that I'm sure would be of interest to you guys. And then I also carry an additional liability insurance. So all of my swimmers would fall under that, if that's something that is of any concern.
So I have a couple of questions right off the bat. How many, I'm assuming you'd want to use one or more of our lakes to conduct these events. So what, if you did an event, how long does this event last?
Great question. So right now, in a perfect world, I'm gonna reach for the sky and then you guys tell me where we need to land. But we would be doing this on a weekly basis. Would be doing this on a weeknight from 6 to 7 p.m. So it's short and sweet. Typically it takes me about 30 minutes to 45 minutes to set everything up. So I typically arrive on site around 4:30, 5 o'clock so that I've got everything set and ready for my participants. And then cleanup is pretty quick.
So it's an hour-long event, once per week.
Mm-hmm.
And how much space do you typically, would you take, in other words, I mean, how big is your course?
How big is my course? So typically I'm within 800 to 1,000 yards is how we set our triangle. And it just kind of depends. I typically don't use my, I've got a viewfinder to measure exactly how far, but I'm a pretty good judge, and 200 yards off is not that big of a deal for my swimmers. So that gets them 2 laps and gives them a full mile, which is what most of my swimmers are after from a distance standpoint. So somewhere around 300 yards to another 300 yards to another 300 yards is how we like to set it. Triangle is ideal. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Grace, you have a question?
Yeah, so would this be set up strategically to avoid boating lanes?
Oh, absolutely.
Is it
yeah.
gonna be more along the shoreline, or how?
Sort of. So my preference would be to do so out at Lake Avalon, the beach area. There's ample parking, and that just makes it a little bit user friendly. And then we would go pretty much a straight out, roughly 30 yards, and then set the first buoy, and then another 300 yards, pretty much following the shoreline, and then that other buoy would be out at an angle a little bit.
So what you're saying is boats and kayakers could still use the lakes while you're conducting your
absolutely.
events.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need to. Okay.
And this would be a weeknight as opposed to the weekend?
Correct. Yeah.
Well,
We want to avoid traffic at all possible.
And you want, obviously, just warm water months, you wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, so typically in years past, we've started as early as April, but April's can go anyway. But we actually have a lake swim out at Beaver Lake this evening that will be starting. So it's typically May through the end of September.
So you've talked to the Recreation Committee, correct?
I haven't talked to the Recreation Committee. I've talked to Joan and Jessica within Aquatics.
So your ask of us is approval to conduct these events, to do this. And are you looking at one lake, or would you like to move it? And would you kind of move it around the different lakes? Do you have a particular lake in mind?
My concern about Avalon is, the beach is in use
Mm-hmm.
in the summer months, and there are a lot of people there, and there's a lot of cars there. So I'm concerned about parking, and there's also a lot of boating activity. And now, I have no suggestion for anything else, but I do know, I'm not sure it's the best fit for Avalon with all the beach
And
activity.
I'm open to suggestion on that part.
I think all of our lakes have water entry friendly areas, where you can enter easily from the shore. And you know, so just, you know, maybe look at some other lakes as well.
Absolutely.
But I hate for there to be too much overflow at Avalon at the same time frame during
Yeah, I think I'm completely open to any suggestion. I think maybe, I'm sure there's someone that has a list of high use areas and lakes, and maybe that can tell us where there's not a lot of activity, and maybe that's where we start out and see how it goes, and then we can alternate. I am open to suggestions in hopes that
So
this could work.
a couple of questions. How many members, and Carol had a good point about parking, how many people would you expect to show up at something like this?
It varies based on how warm and how accommodating the weather is. Tonight out at Beaver Lake, and that's open to the general public, so that's a little bit different, but we'll probably have about 15 swimmers show up tonight. Last year, our highest attended was, we had about 42 or 43, I can't remember, but that also included a youth swim team that showed up as well. We averaged out at 22 swimmers.
And so if you did an event in Bella Vista, would it would be restricted to Bella Vista residents only?
Ideally, and again, I'm going for my ideal, and then let's see where we land. But it would be open to Bella Vista members for free, and then we would charge non-members, and I would expect to give you guys a percentage of that to take care of. Maybe that goes to his boat fund for.
So we typically don't.
It would take several years, but
we typically don't allow non-members to have.
Okay.
We have a couple of kids events where the state provides fish, and the only way we can do it is to open it up to the public. So there's a couple of things that we give special approval for. But on an event that's going to occur weekly, or potentially could occur weekly, we probably, in my mind, I don't think we would allow non-members to participate.
Okay.
If most of those are Bella Vista members, could they sponsor as a guest?
I think if you had a member there, could you do that, or what? I don't know.
Then you have the lake use issue.
Yeah.
Because you have a lake use fee.
Okay.
But the answer is correct. You could, they could sponsor guests since they're a member, but you still have to pay the lake use fee.
Which is how much?
John, you know that off the top of your head?
$6. But if your member is in attendance of you, then that's generally not an issue.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
If you're in attendance of your member, in other words, if you're fishing with your member or that sort of thing, then the lake use fee is not an issue.
Yeah, some of these questions kind of gravitate around many members that have expressed concern about people coming in and using the lake resources without any, people are just feeling that pressure from the growth of the surrounding community, and the number of contacts in April, et cetera, and so that's what a lot of these questions are revolving around, and it does set a precedent if we open it up to people who are non-members.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably going to happen based upon what we've just kind of discussed. So I'm for one would like to take a little more time to think about this. If you would could you send me a proposal of exactly what you plan to do with dimensions and everything, and then I'd like to get Rick's staff at least to look at it and see, hey, is this feasible? Are we causing, may have to have legal look at it? Are we causing,
And
where, when?
Maybe some pictures. I'm having a hard time picturing.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how big that would be on, say, Lake Brittany or Lake Ann.
I actually have it on an email, but yeah,
okay.
I can
So
certainly
we'd
get that to
I
you.
think we need to ferret out a lot of little details before we could vote on something like this.
Okay.
Go ahead. But anybody have questions? Go ahead.
One thing, the ratio of homeowners and members of Bella Vista versus non-members, if you could give us some guesstimate. I mean, so you said the average is 22. Does that mean there's going to be 2 homeowners and
Great,
29?
well,
or
and
is
that's
it-
a great question, and
Can you get a feel of it in the email? Maybe give us a feel of what you think that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
I believe about 20 to 30%, and I'd have to go back and look to confirm mailing addresses, but I think it's about 20 to 30% of our existing team is Bella Vista POA members, either residents or have property here.
So send me a proposal, send us a proposal, as much detail as possible, and then we'll run it by management and legal, whoever else we need, and then any other feedback from the committee or whatever.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
For the committee, opinions about whether this could make sense on no-wake lakes better than.
Microphone.
It's on.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Whether it would make sense to happen on no-wake lakes versus wake lakes.
I would say there are areas of Loch Lomond that are no-wake coves that could be suitable for this, just as easy as a no-wake lake, because you have, I don't know what the figure right off the top of my head, but you've got 30% of Lake Windsor and 30% of Loch Lomond, which are no wake. So I mean, you could theoretically do it in a no wake cove in a big lake as well as a small lake. But yeah, I would definitely pick a no wake section of the lake to do, you know, either a no wake lake or no wake section of a big lake is what I would, yeah.
Yeah, that could be a really
An
nice
easier way to start.
explain, to
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that's been here for a while, but I think we used to have a triathlon that used to happen on Lake Windsor called a sprint or shark sprint or something like that.
There was one that.
Out of London.
month ago.
Are you familiar with that
I'm-
swim that used to happen at?
I'm
Lake
not.
Windsor?
That
Okay.
was before we moved back to the area. But I believe there's one happening in June, I think at Lake Avalon, but I'm not affiliated. I think it's for kids.
The reason I was asking the question, I was just trying to, I know approximately how long that course is, and I was just wondering if it was
Oh,
similar,
very good.
so.
It's actually a pretty easy process to drop pins on a satellite, so I'll play with that and get you guys a couple of options, and I'll lead with my favorites, and then we can go from there.
All right, Bonnie, appreciate it. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the only other thing I have on the agenda, and it's one of the things that I've mentioned a couple of different times. So we've taken steps on the no-wake lakes to remove no-wake buoys in order to simplify confusion about where you can make a wake and where you can't make a wake. So I think it was a very smart move to do it on the no-wake lakes. And so if we, to me, in my mind, the next step on that would be to take the wake lakes and to simplify our buoy system on the wake lakes. And by that I mean in most lakes, when you go into a no-wake cove, there are one or two buoys that indicate it's a no-wake cove, and you don't have a buoy every 30, 40, or 50 yards telling you it's no wake. I think what's happening in a lot of instances in Bella Vista is people see, particularly people who are new to the area or who are visiting, they come in, they see a no-wake buoy, they drive, they motor 50 yards at idle, and they see another no-wake buoy and think, okay, that's the no-wake zone, I'm gonna go fast. And they get, you know, obviously there's another buoy 50 yards down the way, and so I think it's very confusing. It's not anything that's new to Bella Vista, it's been that way ever since I've been here, so it's an inherited kind of an issue. And I think a lot of homeowners think that if we just warn people every 50 yards, you know, we'll get better enforcement and better compliance. And I'm saying if we simplified the system a little bit, we'd probably be better off and go with more of a statewide or nationwide. I think there's some pretty good standards out there. If you go to Beaver, if you go to Table Rock, if you go to some of the other big lakes in the area, they have a much they don't put buoys every so many yards in a no-wake zone. Obviously, you need signs at the boat ramps or the boat docks that said, hey, no wake until you see the buoy. But I'm thinking of some of the coves, particularly Lake Ann is pretty much there already. I think we're not over buoyed at Lake Ann because we have a no ski and a no wake thing, and it's pretty linear. It's pretty simple. But I think on Windsor and on Loch Lomond, we could we could definitely simplify things. The other thing I was thinking of is that identifying the buoys, differentiating the buoys in such a way that Tyree Cove is no ski. It's not no wake, but it's no ski. But if you look at a no ski buoy and a no wake buoy from 50 yards, unless you have really, really good eyesight, you don't know what that buoy says until you get right on it. So one of the things I talked to Rick about, he was gonna look into, was maybe we have a different color buoy for a no ski area versus a no wake area. And I don't know what that looks like, but this isn't gonna be decided today. This is kind of a topic it's kind of bugged me for a long time, and I thought maybe it'd be something we could tackle as a committee and hopefully simplify things. But I'm open to any and all suggestions.
Your comment about going in, I think coming out of a cove, or maybe if you're in Grafton or you're at where we put in Windsor, and you're coming out of the cove, once you see the first no wake buoy, a lot of people may think, okay, now it's open. So if there's two of them, when do you quit seeing them to know when you can full speed? So I agree with you with the problem. I mean, it's an issue that you don't know when.
That arm of Windsor where the London Landing is.
Yeah, London Landing.
That main cove is no wake all the way back.
Yeah.
And there's no wake buoys on both sides of where the London ramp cove goes in. And I've seen boats do that. They slow down and go across the little thing, and then they take off.
Yeah,
because they think that's their.
Yeah, they come out of the ramp cove and take a left, and they go on plane, and technically that's a no wake zone.
Yeah.
So I just think it's confusing, and it can be simplified. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I thought it would be something that we could start thinking about, and with Rick and John and the staff, come up with some way to simplify that. And again, we don't have to implement. Lake Ann, in my opinion, is already done. You might start with Lake Windsor next, or Loch Lomond, and just implement it one cove at a time. And it may be a little bit confusing in the beginning, but I think once people understand it, it's going to be more to a state or a nationwide standard versus just this one-off that we've kind of like got buoys everywhere.
There has to be a national standard.
Yeah. In addition to that, if you think about it, you got less buoys, you got less obstacles to hit on the lake, you've got fewer buoys that you need to replace or repair, and you just got less congestion on your lakes. So I think there's some benefits, and I think it's something, again, we're not going to decide it today, but it's something I wanted to bring to the attention of the committee and thought we might do something about that.
Hey, Matt, if I can chime in for a sec.
Yes, go ahead, Ross.
So I appreciate you bringing it up, and it's something I haven't thought about in a while, but when I moved out here, I've lived on several lakes over the years, and this was the weirdest environment for me. I couldn't make heads or tails of it, and when somebody finally explained it to me, I still picked it apart. I finally gave up and just said it is what it is. I understand it. But when we get the weekend traffic in and stuff like that, or people coming in to visit families, it does raise a level of danger. So thank you for bringing this back up. I do think we need to address it. The other thing I would throw out there is because some of our lakes are narrow and we've restricted wakes to certain parts of the area, we tend to have some people that don't read all the rules and or want to open a boat up at times. And if we could consider directional buoys and helping people understand what the correct rotation is around a lake, I think that would be an opportunity to improve the safety for us as well. But thank you for bringing it up.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, like a
Go ahead,
comment.
Paul.
Well, can we get some numbers on the buoys? Right now, do we feel like we have 20% too many, or 10, or what?
I think we have. I don't know. I haven't physically counted them, but my contention is that when you go in, and I'm going to use Stony Kirk as an example on Loch Lomond. When you go into Stony Kirk from the main lake, there are two big buoys with flags on that say no wake. So it's no wake from there all the way back to the boat ramp. The whole cove is no wake once you pass that buoy. But you don't need a buoy every, and I don't know how often, how far apart they are. I've never measured them, but every 50 or 60 yards is another buoy telling you no wake. I just think that's confusing.
Sure. How many in that particular cove, you think there are 6 of them, or?
At least,
oh.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of buoys.
So maybe if we redo all this, we could minimize it down to maybe 2 or 3?
Yeah, I think you could basically probably take 2/3 of the buoys you have out there and just take them out.
Take them out and then make better instructions on the ones you have.
And the ones we have, you know, if it's particularly Tyree is no ski or no tubing, you know, no skiing, let's call it, you know, maybe no tow, whatever. So maybe put a different colored buoy there that people would differentiate. They're not all white with red stripes on them, for instance. We have, yeah.
Windsor is also a no skier.
Right.
Once you get to the divide.
Right, you go to Loch Lomond, you pull into Granton, coming to the boat ramp, you have a red right returning buoy, and you have a green buoy, which we don't have any other cove in any other lake. But those two have been there for 20-something years. What does that mean? Nobody, I mean, we only have them in one spot in one lake, in one cove. I mean,
So the idea is to reduce the number so that we can make them more identifiable, more useful, including safety and navigation.
simplify understanding of the buoys so that we have better enforcement, better compliance, and ultimately, we're gonna save ourselves maintenance costs because we won't have as many buoys and we won't have to buy as many buoys and replace as many buoys and that sort of thing. So.
I think the folks that live in the lakes, and we all know, we pretty much know exactly what buoys are and where to not ski, where to not tow, and where to slow down. But I think we're coming back to the folks that are visiting. So I think a color system would be fantastic. It's obviously, you know, stoplight, yellow, slow down, red, stop, wake. I don't know, but I think something like that's going to be a little bit more identifiable for those people. And then, like I said, all white.
Yeah, you've got to pull up to the buoy and you got to get within here to the microphone to read what it says. Yeah.
I think if the committee decides we want to go this way, we're just going to have to educate a lot, because I think the perception of a lot of lakefront owners is more buoys is better. So I think it's going to have to, not everybody, but I think we're going to have to make sure we communicate with the community that this is why we're removing buoys, because I think there is a perception the more the better.
Well, I think it goes back to your comment about, is there a state standard or a national standard, and that can help our decision process on the number of buoys, and hopefully that can make sense to the property owners in general.
And we also have homeowners putting up buoys on their docks that say no wake and no wake coves. And on top of all the buoys that you have to look at, you've got homeowners that put up other signs that say no wake, which to me is, I mean, if you're following the rules, you don't need a sign on somebody's private dock saying you're in a no wake cove. I mean, if they want to do it, I guess that's okay. That's a prerogative to put anything on their dock that they want to put, but it just further adds, in my opinion, it further adds to the confusion. So any other comments or thoughts or?
So you guys that have fished far and wide, are you aware of a color scheme system that is used on?
I'm not aware of a color scheme, but to me, we just need something for no, you know, to differentiate no wake from no ski. And again, that would only apply to Windsor and, well, Ann would have one buoy for no ski.
Coast Guard may have some standards.
Yeah. And I meant to do some more research on this and I just hadn't done it, so.
As far as I know, and I believe what we use now is Coast Guard standard, that red and or not red, white and orange, I believe, is Coast Guard standard. And if you notice, there's like circle symbols, like even if you could not read, you're supposed to be able to, you know, pick them apart based on the shapes that are on them. And I know that, so like you mentioned, the red and the green, that's usually more of a maritime thing, but it's a return, and you know which side of your boat is supposed to be.
You usually see that at the coast when you're coming into a jet, you know,
right,
a big waterway from the Gulf or whatever.
Very major navigation lanes, and I would guess that's the reason why those were set up there. But yeah, we can certainly look into a color system and see what we can come up with there.
But don't remove the writing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so again, we're not gonna solve this today. Let's let John and some of us, I'm gonna personally kind of dig into this also and do some research on the internet and see if there's something that we could maybe come up with. And again, we can test it at a lake, and it may be an educational process. Most things that we do are, and probably wouldn't be implemented until next year anyway. Couldn't do anything until January anyway, so just something I thought we might try to tackle.
I was just gonna say, if anybody's interested in seeing, I think what you're talking about firsthand, I believe probably the worst offender that I can think of is probably the Stony Kirk area.
I agree.
So if you want to see kind of what we're talking about, just go out to Stony Kirk, and I think you're gonna see the most amount of buoys and the smallest amount of space anywhere in the village, I think. At least it'll be a great example. No, it's not that many, but
That's 2 at a time.
there's probably at least
five or
that I
six
can think
between
of.
the main entrance to the cove and the boat ramp. I would say 5 or 6.
I know there's one before you make the curve, one right in the curve, and probably 3 after the curve, and that's what I can name. And I don't know how many of those are stacked side by side too. Thank you.
All right, moving on, unless anybody else has another comment or question or concern. So I don't have anything else on the agenda, so I was going to open it up to the audience. Does anybody else have anything before we move to audience? Okay, John?
Hi, my name is John Nuttall. I live on Lake Windsor. And I'm here to come and talk, I came to talk about the lowering of Lake Windsor this year. This will be the 3rd time in the last 13 years Lake Windsor's been lowered. I don't know what everybody expects to be happening all these times, but it's only been 5 years since the last time. And as one of the owners of a floating dock, this is a $2,000 expenditure for me to move my dock far enough from shore that it doesn't get ruined when the lake goes down. And there's a good possibility the guy that moves the dock for me will not come back again, because the last time when we did this, he got thrown off the lake for having a workboat out on the lake when it was lowered. So I'm not sure what you guys think. I haven't seen a reason in the minutes about why the lake was lowered, other than homeowners can do dredging, which I didn't believe they were allowed to do anyway. So, and also the other concern I have is I don't ever see agendas for you guys. There wasn't one here today. There's never one online before the meeting. So we don't know what you're talking about usually until after you've done it, unless we want to dedicate our afternoon to watch it.
Okay, I tried to put the agenda out sometime. I mean, I tried this time I was about a week ahead. I try to do it at least 4 or 5 days prior to the meeting, but I guess we can ask him to
It's
publish.
not on the POA website.
Okay. Okay. All right, so what you're asking, John, are you asking, so let me clarify your point here. You're saying we did it 3 times in 13 years, so you're not opposed to lowering the lake, you think we're doing it too often?
Actually, I'm really opposed. I don't think lakes should be lowered unless there's a valid reason for it. If you need to work on a dam, you need to work on the boat landings, you know, the POA has a project where they need to do dredging. Those are reasons to lower the lake. Because somebody wants to build a seawall in front of their house and they think it's going to be cheaper, not a reason to lower the lake. Actually, most construction work on the lakes is cheaper at full pull than it is when the lake is lowered. And for those of you who don't know about seawalls, when you drain the water off of your seawall, it shortens the life of it because the water still comes against one side and now it doesn't have the water pushing on the other side. You also dry out all that area and you have a tendency to get a lot of extra erosion that you don't need. There are a lot of reasons that you don't want a lake to go up and down. And since none of our lakes are flood control lakes, I can't tell you a good reason to make it happen regularly. And even though I don't like the idea, it's fine. You know, you think you're going to make more people happy. That's what it is. But 3 times in 13 years is a lot of times. And that takes the lake out of service for 6 months out of a year. And so we've taken, half of the season away.
Okay, thanks. John, you want to talk about, I can rattle off a few things that I think are beneficial when we do a lake lowering. One of which is, and I don't know if John's right or not about that, about construction cost. I would think it'd be cheaper to do work on a seawall when the lake is down. John, we're gonna have a discussion here. I would think it would be cheaper doing work on a wall when the water is down versus when it's up. I don't know. I'm not in the construction business. I don't know that. I know there's some benefit to the fish populations when you lower a lake and you allow things to, when you allow grass to grow and aquatic vegetation comes back when you raise the water level. So I know there's some benefits there. And I know some other benefits, allowing homeowners to do work. This POA does some work from time to time. And basically we've been on a schedule, and I thought it was every 6 years that we tried to lower a lake. And so I'd like to verify that. I don't know. I'm assuming John's right, but I don't know that. I'd like to see what that is, and I don't know. Do you have any other comments about benefits or?
On the construction side, I do not know. I can't answer those questions from the construction side. For us, I know it gives us an opportunity to be able to take a look at boat ramps and that sort of thing and see if we've got major blowout areas, behind boat ramps that need to be fixed. We get the opportunity to look at those boat ramps and see, do we need to do concrete work and that sort of thing. And Windsor and Lowman especially, it gives us an opportunity to look at those drawdown structures and exercise those valves, just so we know if there ever were a problem, we know those things are in good working order. On Lake Windsor, there's certainly always dredging, not necessarily dredging, but gravel and that sort of thing that is going to just deposit over time. We know there's large gravel deposits over in the pontoon park area. Now that's not to say that it won't be there one day after we close up the gates and we have another flood event. It very well could come right in there again and fill up, but it does allow us that opportunity to remove those materials. We usually take those opportunities to do some fish habitat work while the lake is down, get new Christmas trees and that sort of thing, pallet structures, and we'll do some fish habitat work if we have time to do that. From a fish population standpoint, it can be beneficial. I won't say it's always beneficial in our lakes, but it doesn't seem to be detrimental. I will say that. It does not seem to be detrimental, but it can create what we call a crowded condition. And so when you've got lakes that have a lot of predators in them, like bass and which our lakes have, you force all those fish into a much closer confine, and there's not a whole lot of area to escape. So it can be a helpful tool to help reduce your population. That doesn't typically bear itself out real well with our drawdowns, and that's simply because we draw down from November to through the winter. That's the time of the year when fish are eating the least, but that also means we were having less of an impact on that population in and of itself. That's pretty much it that I can think of as far as our benefit. I do not know. Rick could probably answer this question better than myself, because I know he's been in these talks. I'm not aware of the actual projects that need to go on Lake Windsor as of right now. Like I said, I know anytime it is down, it allows us to get a good look at everything, which is certainly important, to get a good look at those structures to know where we are. That's pretty much it.
That's the spillways?
Yes, absolutely. We could, if we absolutely needed to, we could usually take a look at a spillway. We can let out just a little water, and with the amount of time that we've got for the recharge rate, we can usually look at a spillway. Now that might not allow us to actually do work in there, because you just probably won't have time. And one thing about Lake Windsor, and it's no guarantees where Mother Nature is concerned, because you don't know what you're gonna get in the spring. Lake Windsor does have well, it's not the largest, but it is the second largest watershed to lake ratio, which basically gives you an idea of what your recharge rate is gonna be anytime you've got a drop of rain that hits the landscape. It's got one of the larger in the village, and anybody that was here for that flood, I think that we had in 2010, we know that Lake Windsor came up overnight. It was, yeah, it was it 13 that we had?
Maybe there's one.
Well, no, we had that flood in 13, but in 2010, when we did all those major habitat projects, the lake was down 7 feet below full pool, and it got pretty much filled up overnight, plus a couple of feet. So it has the power to come up very quickly if we do get rain, but you can't guarantee that ever.
Maybe we can have Rick put together some stats on the number of projects that are done on lakes when they're closed. Because I know that last time I spoke with Rick, he was commenting that he was fielding a lot of requests regarding doing work on Windsor, but saying a lot of requests and knowing the actual number is a different thing, so maybe we can have him quantify that.
Yeah, just make a quick comment. The 15 years I've lived on Rayburn, the lakefront was constructed. It was just, earth, and I had a concrete lake wall put in. It's probably 25. It's across the lot, 50 feet maybe. And of course, the lake was up, it's normal level. And then I had it done again in 2014, I believe. All right, and done again, major refit. And both times the lake was at full pool, for whatever that's worth. One time recently was when the lake was down. It was a minor repair, for whatever that's worth.
Okay. Any other comment, question, concern?
Yeah, Matt, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Ross.
Yeah. I guess my only call out would be, I'm not a fan of having the lakes down either for a significant period of time, but I've also lived on several lakes, as I mentioned, and I've done piers and seawalls and metal and concrete and wood on 3 different homes in particular. From a construction perspective, I was able to do 2 of them when water was down on different lakes, and 1 when water was up. Huge price differences. And I priced 1 out with the water down and water up, and the other one I had no option but to do it with the water up, and the price points were significantly different. One was at least $5,000 to $10,000, the other one was $30,000 to $40,000 in difference. So I am a believer that it makes a difference. I don't like that they're down, but I do believe it's part of a necessary evil, and it's a benefit that we have, actually.
Thanks, Ross. Anybody else? He can put together that list. Yeah, we got a note on that. Okay. Anybody else? Anything else from anybody before we wrap up? Because I don't think I have anything else on the agenda. I do want to make a reminder. We've got a couple months before we do this, but beginning with our July 2023 meeting, we need to elect officers, chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. I'm willing to stay on as chairman unless somebody else really wants it. Vice chairman, Errol is moving off, so we need a vice chair. So any of you think you might be interested in that position, please let me know. Secretary, Carol, I hope like heck you want to continue to do that, because we do appreciate all the hard work that you do on that.
I could move up.
What's that?
I could move up.
You could. You could.
No, I'm just kidding.
We'll ask for a pay raise.
Okay, right.
You're getting well paid for this.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
No,
I'm good
so
where I am.
So I think Carol's willing to stay on. Again, I'm willing to stay on, but we do need a vice chair. So if somebody has the inclination to do that, please let me know, because we need to do that in the July meeting. And we have 1 more meeting prior to that, so you got time to think about it. All right, anything else before we close the meeting off?
Next meeting.
Yes, next meeting. Kelly Austin's usually in charge of that, telling me, reminding me.
Let's see, June 2nd, Wednesday would be the 14th.
Yep. June 14th, 2 p.m. here. Hope to see everybody then. Thanks, everybody.